So today, guys, I wanted to answer one question that really stood out for me on that post that I did for you guys to ask questions for me, right? And it's made by Soldo60606666. What do you think about battle rating based on loadout? And I really wanted to answer this together with doing a whole video about this thing because, guys, this would actually save you from a lot of grind, as well as making the game be able to have multiple types of battles in the same game without like needing to be adding a lot of models in aircraft, for example. And at the same time, it would create a lot more balance throughout your first, iterations with the aircraft, so in the terms of stock grind, and also it would create a lot more balance in the meantime when you are, full spaded as well, So I'm gonna give you some examples. I'm gonna explain my idea here, and hopefully guide you in a not so far into the future situation, add something similar to that. So let's grab an aircraft. Let's grab an aircraft that a lot of people complain about. Let's grab the F4E. The F4E is an aircraft that a lot of people have, of course. And it's an aircraft that became kind of a mixed kind of eras of an aircraft. Because if you don't know, the F4E, they introduced the aircraft around in 1968, if I'm not mistaken. And it was an aircraft that at the time was very advanced. The radar was very advanced. The missiles that you would use were advanced. Everything was very, very advanced for the time. But if added like that in the BR that it is right now, it would be problematic, right? So what they do? They added several modifications to the aircraft. For example, the Agile Eagle package that introduces slats and other minor modifications to make the aircraft a little bit more agile. They added the flares and chaff countermeasures. They added 70s, missiles to it. So in theory, we can have, for example, on the very least, 2 F4Es in the game. Or 3, we could have, for example, one that would be a 1968 one that would be around 10 point something in BR, very similar to the F4C, maybe 10.3, 10.7 in BR, with no Agile Eagle, no flares, just an overall kind of older line of thinking, and the older missiles, the AIM-9Es, the AIM-7Es, the older ones, not the E2s from 1969, and just normal 60 weapons. We can have another one from the mid to late 70s, which would be the F4E that we have right now, with the AIM-9J, with the AIM-7E2. We could have, the Agile Eagle, the flares and everything, and we can even have a modernized F4E from the 80s, right? So for example, the AIM-7F apparently was used in that aircraft. The Shrike missiles, anti-radiation missiles, still using maybe the AIM-9Js or maybe an AIM-9P4 or something like that. So upgrades to the radar that happened to help it up, help it out, a little bit. It's minor updates, but still the APQ 120 received updates. And with that, we can have basically three BRs on the same aircraft. We can have, like I said, a 10.7 1960 ones. You can have the 11.3 normal one that we have in the game, and maybe an 11.7 or even 12.0 to be comparable to the F4J, F4E in the same F4, without you actually needing to basically grind a whole new aircraft. So depending on what you want to fly, depending if you are in a stock grind or anything with that, the BR would change, right? So for example, you would have a modification that adds up the Agile Eagle package and the flares. If you add that up, it increases the BR to 11.3. If you put the AIM-7F and the other upgrades, it becomes 11.7. etc., etc., right? That can be added, for example, for the F-15A. Let's talk more on American aircraft over here. The F-15A could have, for example, the AIM-7E2s that they used at first. The AIM-9Js, I think, right? At first, and have a lower BR. 12 point something, 12.3, 12.7, I don't know. Then, of course, later, the version that we have in the game with better missiles. Maybe the AIM-9L would, if you use the AIM-9L instead of the AIM-9M, it would decrease the BR to 12.7. I don't know, something like that. It would be a lot more dynamic. If we go to the Russians, the MiG-29s, they are 12.7 right now. If you increase the BR to 13.0, if you choose to use the R-73, maybe you don't like to use the R-73 and you want to choose the R-60M to have a lower BR. I don't know, guys. The AK-141, higher BR or lower BR with the R-77 and R-73. And so on and so on. Basically, it would mean that every single aircraft could have everything that they ever used. So you can have, everything that the aircraft used without a balancing situation. And the player would be the one to choose if they're gonna actually use that weapon system or not, depending if they want to fight harder or more modern aircraft or not. The MLD could be one with the R-73s and a higher BR. The MiG-23M could have a lower BR if you don't use the R-60M, etc., etc., etc. I can have, options and examples throughout the whole day over here. But the thing is, at the end of the day, guys, it would mean that the player would choose what BR he wants to fly with his aircraft. I know it would create one problem that Gaijin doesn't like too much, and that would be that they like to have different versions of the aircraft in different BRs, right? So, for example, I don't know, maybe the... Actually, it's kind of hard to find an example out of this. But maybe, for example, the early and late models out of an aircraft. That it's not something that happens all the time, it's from time to time. But in a general sense, would mean that the early and late models wouldn't be a thing, because you would basically have all the models in one model, and then you would have the upgrades that you can have on the aircraft to change the BR and the performance of the aircraft. So, for example, an F-14A early would stop being an early model, but then you would basically choose, for example, if you only use the AIM-7E4s and the AIM-9Gs, I don't know, AIM-9Hs, it would be 12.3 BR. But if you use the AIM-7F, it becomes a 12.7. If you use the TCS and they upgraded everything on the aircraft to become kind of a 80s F-14A with AIM-7Ms and AIM-9Ms, it becomes a 13.0 aircraft. So you would be the one to choose, while the aircraft would have all the options for us to actually play in. At least this would be my opinion on it. I think they should definitely add these. Hopefully they do add these at a certain point. Remember that different BRs in different game modes was a thing that they said that wouldn't ever be added, and now we have that. So maybe in the future we will have something like this. They say they are not working on it, but if enough people ask for it, we will probably see this thing happening, and it would be great for us that love realistic loadouts, that love to have the option to choose to fly maybe a modern day aircraft in a older day kind of situation, right? So it would be very cool, and of course it would help a lot in the stock grind for everybody. So let me know in the comments what you think about it. See you guys at the next one. Make sure to subscribe, leave a like, leave a comment, and bye. See ya.